It was just after midnight when I crossed into Montana from the east, the faded welcome sign flickering under my high beams like a half-hearted greeting. Snow dusted the shoulders of the road, not enough to stick, but enough to remind you that spring didn't mean much up here. I'd been behind the wheel for 10 hours, hauling a flatbed load of construction trusses from Sioux Falls to Spokane. I was 2 energy drinks in, chewing on jerky that tasted like salted cardboard, and somewhere west of Miles City, Interstate 90 stretched out ahead like a tunnel of cold stars. I was used to the emptiness. Long-haul work is a quiet life. You sleep in the cab, you eat at pilot stations, you learn to talk to yourself. But that night, I kept catching glimpses of something in my side mirror. A dark blur at the edge of the road, here and gone, like a smear on the glass. I figured it was nerves, or exhaustion. Then I saw him for real. About 15 miles past the Rosebud exit, a guy standing at the edge of the shoulder, waving both arms, flailing like his hands were on fire. I tapped the brakes and pulled over, cab lights glowing amber against the snow-crusted gravel. As he got closer, I reached under the seat for the small crowbar I keep there. Just a reflex. You pick up enough rides and you learn. You don't assume the worst, but you don't assume anything. The guy looked maybe 27, 30 tops. Wind-chapped face, pale and twitchy, wearing a brown Carhartt jacket and jeans soaked to the knees. He clutched a half-torn backpack and kept glancing over his shoulder like something was chasing him. "Thank you, Jesus," he breathed as he climbed up into the passenger side. "Man, I thought you were going to keep driving." "You okay?" I asked. "You hurt?" He shook his head fast, eyes darting, the way a rabbit watches the tree line. No, I need to get west. Like now. Like fast." I didn't say anything, just shifted into gear and eased back onto the interstate. The wind buffeted the trailer, making the whole rig shimmy like it wanted to come apart. He sat silent for a few minutes, clutching his bag like it was the only thing holding him together. I glanced over and caught him looking at the floorboard, then the dashboard, then me, watching everything. "You got a name?" I asked finally. "Eli," he said. "Yours?" "Tom." "Thanks, Tom," he muttered, then looked behind us again. "Seriously, thank you." We drove in silence. Outside, the highway disappeared into darkness. No taillights ahead, no headlights behind. Just us and the wind. About 10 minutes later, he leaned forward and said, "I need to ask you something, and I know how it's going to sound, but I swear, I'm not crazy." "Okay." "There's an AirTag in this jacket." He tugged at the collar. "I didn't put it there. They did." "Who's they?" He hesitated. "The cartel." I didn't answer right away. I just kept my eyes on the road, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. "I was working in Cheyenne," he said. "Welding jobs. This guy I knew, Carlos, he asked me to move a couple crates for him. Said it was construction equipment. I was stupid. I didn't ask questions. Took a truck to a storage lot in Billings. Thought I was just making a few hundred under the table. Then I saw what was really in the crates." "What was it?" "Guns," he said, barely above a whisper. "Military-grade stuff. Russian." I freaked. I left the truck, ditched my phone, ran. Been hitching ever since. But I know they're following me. I found the AirTag sewn into the lining of this jacket in Buffalo. Took it out, tossed it, figured I was good. But they found me again. This one's sewn into the cuff. I can feel it." He started digging at the sleeve, yanking at the seam like he was trying to rip it open. I reached over and grabbed his wrist. "Hey," I said. "Stop. You're gonna cut yourself." "I need to get rid of it." His voice cracked. "They're coming, man. They're in these black SUVs. No plates. Tinted everything. I've seen them 3 times now. One was at a gas station outside Hardin. Just parked, waiting. I walked past and the guy in the passenger seat stared at me like he already knew me, like I was meat. My gut said drugs, paranoia. But I've been around long enough to know you don't always see the whole picture right away. And he didn't smell like booze, didn't have that meth jitter look, just scared, real scared. "You got proof?" I asked. He nodded, then rummaged in his backpack, pulled out a silver AirTag, scratched and dented. "This is the first one," he said. "Found it stitched into the inside hem. You can scan it. It's still active. They want me alive, for now, but they're closing in." I stared at the little disc. I didn't scan it, didn't touch it, just kept one hand on the wheel and the other near the crowbar. We passed through Forsyth about an hour later. The gas gauge dipped below a quarter. I figured we'd stop at the Pilot on the other side of town. Fill up, stretch my legs, maybe call someone. Cops, maybe. I hadn't decided yet. That's when I saw the headlights. No flashing lights, no erratic speed. Just two black SUVs in the distance behind us, keeping a steady pace, maybe a mile back. Too far to read plates, too close to ignore. "Those them?" I asked. Eli turned in his seat and let out a sound halfway between a gasp and a prayer. "Yes, that's them. I swear to God." I sped up, not enough to look suspicious, but enough to widen the gap. The rigs can only do so much on a grade, and we were climbing. I felt the weight of the trusses drag us down. "They'll try to box you in," Eli said. "One'll take the shoulder, the other'll stay behind. They did it to Carlos before he disappeared." "You said you didn't know where Carlos went." "I don't," he said. "I just know he didn't show up again. Ever." The Pilot was coming up in under 5 miles. I knew the place. Clean bathrooms, 24-hour diner, and decent cell service. If I could get us there and inside, maybe I could hand this off to someone with a badge. Or maybe they'd already paid off someone with one. As we approached the exit, I saw the first SUV speed up. Just a little. Enough to tighten the gap. Eli saw it too. "Don't stop," he said. "Whatever you do, don't stop here. Keep going. You said you needed to get west." "Yeah, but not if I'm dead before we get to Bozeman." I stayed on the interstate. The SUVs followed. We drove in silence for a long time. Maybe 40 miles. The SUVs kept their distance, one behind, one hanging back. Watching, pacing. My palms were slick. Every mile west, the road twisted more. Hills, valleys, overpasses. Perfect places to disappear a body or vanish a semi. Somewhere before Big Timber, Eli turned to me and said, "You could turn me in. Just say I threatened you. Say I'm a drifter. You'd be clear." I looked at him, really looked. Dirt under his nails, dried blood at his temple, like he'd taken a branch to the face. Torn boots. This wasn't a guy running from guilt. This was a guy running for his life. "No," I said. "We finished this." At Livingston, I saw my chance. The road split. Interstate 90 curved northwest. There was an old access road just before it, barely used, leads into the foothills. I'd been on it before during a detour. If I could fake a mechanical problem, pull off, then loop around through the hills, I might lose them. I took the turn. The SUVs followed, but too fast. They overshot by a few seconds, gave me space. I cut the lights and drove blind for 300 yards, then veered onto a maintenance path behind a ridgeline. Parked, killed the engine. We waited. Nothing but wind. Eli was shaking. Did we lose them? For now. He pulled out the second AirTag, now torn from his sleeve. "Can I throw it?" I nodded. He opened the passenger door and chucked it into the dark. Then we waited. 5 minutes. 10. Headlights returned, swept the road like searchlights. But they didn't find us. They left. We waited another hour before I started the engine. I dropped him outside Bozeman just before dawn. Gave him my last 50 in cash and my burner cell. "You think they'll find me again?" he asked. I shrugged. "Depends on how long they had your scent, where you go next, who you trust." He nodded, then looked me dead in the eyes. "Thanks for not turning me in." I just drove off. 3 weeks later, I saw a news blurb on a regional site. Small arms bust in Great Falls. Anonymous tip led to a storage locker full of rifles. Suspects unknown. No arrests made. I never saw Eli again. But every time I pass an unmarked SUV, I check my mirrors for too long. I was about 40 miles south of Waco, already running behind, and the stink started leaking through the cab's vent system somewhere outside Temple. It was faint at first, not quite identifiable, just off. A chemical sweetness, almost like antifreeze left too long in the heat. But by the time I reached the outskirts of Belton, it was full-on rotten. Hot, wet decay, like meat left in a sink after the power's been out for a week. I pulled onto the shoulder and hopped down, boots crunching gravel. The asphalt radiated heat. I could feel it rising through the soles. My trailer was a 48-foot reefer loaded wall-to-wall with boxed beef, ribs, shanks, briskets, some ground. All packed at a warehouse in Laredo and headed north to a distributor in Dallas. Nothing fancy, but enough money involved to keep people twitchy. I walked to the back and popped the latch on the trailer doors. The wave that hit me made my stomach curl. There's no mistaking that kind of stink. It's death, not fresh, not clean like you get on a hunt. It was thick and ugly, rancid fat and sour blood. I gagged and stepped back, grabbing the reefer's control panel. The digital temp display blinked red, 47 degrees. It should have been holding steady at 34. I tried the manual override. Nothing. The condenser wasn't running. I climbed up the catwalk to check the coolant line. It looked fine at first glance, but when I touched the feed hose, it came off in my hand. The fitting had been sliced clean, not frayed, not snapped. A straight razor cut, hidden just enough to keep it working for a few miles after pickup. Whoever did it knew what they were doing. I stood there in the heat, trying to get my bearings, watching buzzards circle lazy loops in the high blue Texas sky. There's something about reefer work that draws a certain kind of guy. You're not just hauling, you're babysitting. Temperature logs, delivery windows, strict loading docks. It pays better, but it's less forgiving. You screw up, product goes bad, people get sick, or worse. Some companies lose entire contracts over one bad shipment. I'd worked my way up to it after 15 years driving general freight. My rig, an older Kenworth W900, had been paid off for 3. I kept it spotless. I didn't cut corners, and I sure as hell didn't run spoiled meat. I climbed back into the cab, windows down, trying to think. I couldn't take it to Dallas. Even if I got lucky and the distributor didn't do a temp check, which they always did, the USDA guys could pull me for a random inspection at any weigh station. All it would take was one look in that trailer, and I'd be looking at fines, a suspension, maybe worse. Food safety violations get ugly fast. So I called Miguel. He was my point man in Laredo. Ex-driver, knew everybody at the yard. A fixer, basically. When he picked up, I didn't waste time. "Trailer's cooked," I said. "Somebody cut the coolant line. I'm leaking stink from Temple to Killeen." Miguel swore under his breath. "Tell me you didn't open the doors." "Cracked them to check. Why?" "You're not the first. 2 other drivers called this week. Same cargo, same loadout, same route. All bad. Boss thinks it's a competitor, maybe someone inside. But that's not your problem anymore." "Yeah? What is?" He paused. "You're being watched." "What?" "They've got guys stationed up the I-35 corridor. Plain sedans. Usually hang near the weigh stations, sometimes a Loves or Pilot. They've got your plate. Boss thinks they're trying to pin the sabotage on drivers, take you down with the cargo. I felt a cold weight settle behind my ribs. So what the hell am I supposed to do with a truck full of rotten meat? You dump it. Quiet. Off route. Find a landfill that doesn't ask questions. Then you burn the manifest and clean the reefer. Make it look like a breakdown. You didn't call me. We never spoke. The line went dead. I pulled back onto the interstate and eased north. The cab stank. I cranked the windows down and choked through the breeze. I passed a state trooper sitting in the median near Salado, and I swear his eyes locked on me just a second too long. By the time I reached the way station outside Troy, the paranoia had fully set in. I veered off an exit early, cut through a feed store lot, and looped onto a rural farm road that paralleled the highway. It was rough, full of dust and potholes, but it gave me space to think. I started scanning for a place to ditch. I couldn't just unload anywhere. A refrigerated trailer full of rotting meat draws every kind of attention. Animals, cops, EPA. I needed somewhere remote, accessible, and fast. A landfill was best, but I had to find one off book. I remembered an old driver trick. Call the nearest construction site and offer cash to use a dirt pit. I parked under an overpass near Bruceville Eddy, stepped into the brush, and called a guy I knew from my days hauling gravel. His cousin worked a concrete crew near Elm Mott. Tell him 500 cash, no questions, and I'll be in and out in 20 minutes. 30 minutes later, I was rattling down a service road behind a chain-link fence. A yellow cat excavator was parked to one side. Nobody in sight. I backed the trailer to the lip of a half-dug foundation pit, killed the engine, and stepped out. The heat made the stench 10 times worse. I gagged again as I unlocked the trailer doors, swung them wide, and stared into the ruin. Blood-streaked boxes, sagging shrink wrap, black fluid pooling beneath the pallets. A few had burst. Maggots already twitched on exposed fat. I started unloading by hand. Box after box, slippery, bloated, heavy as hell. My shirt stuck to my back. The sun blazed down. Buzzards landed nearby and started hopping closer. It took an hour. I dumped the last box, took a long look at the pile, and lit a cigarette with shaking hands. My head was pounding. Then I heard tires on gravel. I dropped the cigarette and ducked behind the reefer's tire well. 2 vehicles, a white Impala and a black Tahoe, both unmarked. They pulled up slow, doors opening in sync. 4 men got out. No uniforms, just jeans, sunglasses, work boots. They didn't look confused. They looked like they knew exactly what they were walking into. The tallest one pointed toward the trailer. The others fanned out. I slid back inside the cab, heart hammering, and grabbed the crowbar I kept under the passenger seat. I didn't have a weapon. I'd never needed one before. I waited until 2 of them were around back before I gunned the engine. The Kenworth roared to life. The men shouted, scrambling to move. I slammed it into gear and jerked forward, the reefer doors still hanging open, blood and packaging tumbling onto the dirt behind me. One guy tried to grab the cab handle, but I swerved hard left and heard him hit the gravel. I tore back toward the service road, tires skidding. The Tahoe spun out behind me in a cloud of dust. I hit the main road doing 40. They followed. I ran dark up Highway 77, no lights, weaving through back roads, praying not to get pulled over. They chased me for a good 30 miles. I ditched the trailer north of Hillsboro, jackknifed it into a dry creek bed, and cut the brake lines. Let it sit like a breakdown. Then I switched plates with a wrecked pickup behind a junkyard and kept driving. I didn't stop until I crossed into Oklahoma. I didn't call Miguel, didn't call anyone. I tossed my phone in a rest stop toilet and kept heading north, past Tulsa, into Missouri. I didn't look back. That was 6 months ago. I haul gravel now. Local routes. No manifests, no clients with deep pockets, no damn refrigeration. I keep the cab clean. I lock everything twice. And I never, ever open the trailer unless I loaded it myself. Because I don't care what they say. The worst thing you'll ever smell isn't a corpse. It's meat that almost made it. And the men willing to kill over it. I'd just crossed the Kansas border into Oklahoma, somewhere between nowhere and El Reno, when the fatigue started digging into the back of my skull. I'd been driving since sunrise out of Cheyenne County with a load of pressure-treated lumber headed for a Home Depot in Lubbock. Nothing fancy. My dispatcher, a guy named Kenny who chewed sunflower seeds like it was an Olympic sport, had warned me about pushing it through the night, but I needed the hours. It was my third solo run since getting my CDL, and I was still nursing the anxiety of backing into docks without tearing the trailer off the hinges. The Flying J off Interstate 40 was tucked behind a long curve, flanked by floodlit diesel pumps and a diner with yellowed windows. I pulled into a back corner of the lot, behind 3 other rigs already snuggled in for the night. Parked nose out, like everyone else, with my cab facing a line of trees behind a sagging chain-link fence. The air smelled like fried food, hot brakes, and diesel. I killed the engine, climbed down, stretched my arms until my spine popped, and headed inside for coffee. The place had that end-of-the-road feel. Dim ceiling tiles, overstocked vending machines, one old guy asleep in a booth with a half-eaten plate of eggs sliding off the table. I poured a coffee, grabbed a microwaved burrito, and made small talk with a cashier named Rhonda, who had a tattoo of a snake curling behind her ear. We talked about the heat, the bugs, and how the ice machine kept breaking down. Oklahoma stuff. Back in the cab, I pulled the curtain around the sleeper and let the burrito go cold while I scrolled through a few videos on my phone. I had no signal, but the truck stop's Wi-Fi worked just enough for YouTube. Outside, a steady drone of idling engines and CB chatter blanketed the air. I left the windows cracked. August in Oklahoma was like sleeping inside a mouth. It was sometime after midnight when I heard the knock. Not a polite knock either. Hard, rhythmic, metal on metal. I froze in the dark, heart rate spiking. Another knock, this time on the passenger side. I peeked between the curtains and saw a figure, just a shadow, move past my cab and toward the truck parked next to me. Whoever it was didn't glance up, didn't hesitate, just walked straight up the metal steps of the next rig and opened the passenger door without knocking again. I figured maybe it was a team driver situation. Husband and wife or 2 long haulers sharing a rig. Happens all the time. But something about the posture, the way the guy moved, head down, fast, didn't sit right. I stayed still, listening. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Then I heard the door close again. Not slammed, just eased shut. I peeked out again. The figure was gone. I turned back to the burrito, finally took a bite. It tasted like rubber and regret. But that's when I saw it. Through the windshield, across the dark dash of the neighboring truck, there was a tiny blinking red light. At first I thought it might be an anti-theft thing, but I leaned forward, squinted, and realized what I was looking at. A camera, mounted dead center on the neighbor's dash, and not just recording, streaming. A faint green LED blinked beside the red one. That meant it was connected to something. A hotspot, probably. I pulled out my phone and opened my hotspot scanner. Sure enough, a network popped up. Redbird Stream. No password. I connected. A single IP address showed up under the router's connected devices. I clicked into it, expecting maybe a blank screen or a broken link. But what I saw made the hairs on my arms rise. The stream showed the very lot I was sitting in, from my neighbor's dashboard, in real time. Wide angle, clear resolution, everything. I could see my own cab, my own plates. And from the angle, I knew anyone watching had a perfect view of everything happening in the lot, including what had just gone down with that shadowy visitor. I backed out of the stream, heart pounding now. I should have left it alone, but I didn't. Instead, I got out, stepped down into the heavy night air, and walked slowly around to the neighboring truck. No lights inside, curtains drawn, the kind of darkness that eats sound. I knocked, gently. No response. I was about to walk away when I saw it. On the ground, right below the driver's side door, a flip phone. Old school, burner style. Open. I bent down, picked it up. The screen was cracked, but still functional. No lock. One app open. A local group chat. Messages. Drops in 10. Back corner. Eyes on. Stream's hot. Use the back gate. That's his rig. Colorado plates. He doesn't know. My mouth went dry. I looked at my own license plate, just visible under the parking lights. Colorado plates. Mine. Whoever they were using the neighbor's dash cam to live stream deals. Illegal ones, probably black market cargo exchanges, and had made me the fall guy by parking me in frame. Whoever was coordinating this had pointed their people to my truck. A shape moved in the rear view. I slipped the phone into my pocket and stepped around the front of my truck like I was just stretching my legs. A sedan had pulled into the far corner of the lot. No lights. Another truck idled across from it. Doors opened. Figures emerged. 2 of them, one from each vehicle. They met between the rigs. Handshakes. Then a bundle was passed. Tarped crate, maybe 2 feet long, slung between them like dead weight. I stood still. My cab was between them and me. They hadn't seen me yet. Then one of the figures looked up. Not at me. At the camera. The blinking red light. A second later, he turned his head, slowly, toward my cab. My heart jumped. I climbed back in and slammed the door. My mind was racing. I couldn't just peel out. I was boxed in. Trucks behind me, beside me. No way to back out without waking up half the lot and making a scene. I heard footsteps. Fast. Crunching gravel. Then a loud knock. Not on my cab. The neighbors again. I cracked my curtain just enough to see one of the men, bearded, baseball cap, yanking the camera from the dash. He looked pissed. He yanked hard, wires dangling. Then his head turned again, toward me. I dropped the curtain. 30 seconds later, I heard my own door handle rattle. They were trying to open it. I slammed the lock switch, grabbed my phone. No signal. But the truck stop had landlines. I reached behind the seat, pulled my tire iron from under the bed, and gripped it tight. Slid down, eased the door open just an inch, and slipped out barefoot, quiet as I could. I jogged low between rigs, keeping in the shadows, until I reached the diner entrance. Inside, Rhonda was flipping through a People magazine behind the register. I ran up, breathless. "Call the cops," I said. "Now. Someone's trying to set me up." She stared. "What?" "There's a camera. In that truck." I pointed. It was streaming a deal. Black market. Drugs, maybe worse. My plates were on the stream. "They're coming for me. Call the cops." She didn't hesitate. Picked up the phone and dialed. The rest was a blur. 15 minutes later, a convoy of unmarked SUVs and 2 local cruisers screeched into the lot. Rhonda must have hit the right panic word. Or maybe the feds were already watching the stream. Either way, they moved fast. Black vests, flashlights, guns drawn. They pulled the 2 guys from the sedan, searched the truck across the lot, found the crate. I never found out what was inside. They didn't tell me. But I saw the agents open it before they shoved it into a van. They were all wearing gloves. Masks. One of the agents, Hispanic guy, late 30s, pulled me aside, asked me what I'd seen. I told him everything. The camera, the messages, the knock on my door. He nodded, expression unreadable. "You're lucky," he said. They weren't going to knock again. They impounded the neighbor truck, hauled it away with the camera still dangling from the dash. I spent the next 4 hours giving statements, showed them the burner phone. They bagged it. By dawn, the lot was empty again. Just Rhonda, sweeping cigarette butts off the curb like nothing had happened. I climbed back in my cab and sat for a while, staring at the cracked windshield and wondering how close I'd come. I left Oklahoma before lunch, Took the back roads through Texas instead of the interstate. Didn't sleep until El Paso. I still take long hauls. Still sleep in truck stops. But I always check the truck next to me. And I never park near anyone with a camera on their dash. I've been hauling fuel up and down the Pacific coast for almost 12 years. Nights mostly. Fewer cars, fewer questions. There's something comforting about the rhythm of the road, the drone of tires chewing asphalt, the way the world narrows to the reach of your headlights. You get used to solitude. You start to prefer it. It was early April, and Northern California was smothered in one of those thick coastal fogs that make the world feel underwater. I'd pulled into a turnout off Highway 101, just north of Eureka. It was past 2 in the morning, cold enough to see your breath, even in the cab. I'd been pushing through rain all night, and the rhythmic drum of it on the windshield had started to lull me. Thought I'd take a 20-minute nap before heading inland. My tanker, loaded full with over 8,000 gallons of diesel, sat parked behind me, its massive bulk silent and still in the mist. I cracked the window an inch, just enough for air, and killed the engine. The hum of the dashboard faded, leaving me with the hiss of wind and the faint lapping of the Pacific somewhere beyond the trees. I reclined the seat, unbuckled my belt, and drifted. When I woke, it was because something wasn't right. Not a sound at first, just a feeling. You don't get that kind of instinct unless you've done a job like this long enough. I sat up, blinking hard, trying to orient myself. Fog still hugged the windshield. The cab smelled faintly of sweat and vinyl. I reached for my phone. Dead. Not low battery. Dead. That was the first real alarm bell. I opened the door slowly and stepped down into the gravel. The fog was thicker now, dense enough that I could barely see the hood of the truck. But there was a sound. Faint. Wet, mechanical, sloshing. I turned toward the trailer and froze. 2 black hoses snaked from the lower valves of the tanker. At first I thought they were part of the rig, something I'd missed maybe. But then I saw they ran out into the fog, across the turnout and into the trees. One of them pulsed slightly, like a vein. I followed it 10 steps before I heard the whisper of footsteps behind me. Hands up. The voice was calm, young, male. I turned slowly. He wore a balaclava, black from forehead to chin, and carried a flare gun. Not a weapon you take lightly around a fuel truck. He was about my height, maybe early 20s, with a steady posture that said he wasn't guessing his way through this. He meant it. "Don't move," he said. "You move, and the whole coast hears it." "What the hell are you doing?" I asked. My voice came out rougher than I expected. "Just a conversation," he said. "But you don't get to leave until we're done." I looked past him. Shadows flickered in the fog. 2 more figures, both masked, both moving around the rig. One crouched near the valves, securing the hoses with some kind of industrial clamp. The other disappeared toward the woods, carrying a small box I didn't recognize. "You're stealing diesel?" I said. He tilted his head. "We don't need your fuel. We just needed a stage." A small red light blinked near his shoulder. Body cam. I didn't know if it was streaming, recording, or just there to make me think it was. But it made the whole thing feel rehearsed, deliberate. He gestured toward the cab. "Back inside, and keep your hands where I can see them." I climbed back into the truck. He followed. The flare gun never dipped. "You drive for Redwood Pacific, right?" he asked. I nodded. "The company building the line through 6 Rivers National Forest?" I nodded again. "They told you it's just an expansion," he said. "That it's safe. That it's legal. I haul fuel. That's all I do." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a smartphone, then a thin lapel mic. "You're going to read a statement," he said. "You can say whatever you want, but you're going to start by identifying yourself and who you work for." My pulse thudded in my ears. "No. If you don't," he said, "my friends will light the tank." It was a bluff. Had to be. They wouldn't torch thousands of gallons of diesel and kill everyone on this turnout just for a video. Except, he stepped aside and let me see through the windshield. Another flare gun, planted upright in a small tripod, was positioned 20 feet from the trailer. It was wired to a battery pack and something that looked like a modified drone controller. One of the others held it in their hands, watching us. "You're out of your mind," I said. He didn't flinch. "They'll hear it from Crescent City to Mendocino. You'll be the only survivor. You want to live with that?" I stared at the mic, then at the screen. I could see my reflection in the dark glass, older than I remembered, with tired eyes and week-old stubble. What they were doing didn't make sense. This wasn't theft. It wasn't even sabotage. It was theater. And I was the lead. "You do this," I said. "You'll still lose. They'll bury this story." He shrugged. "Maybe. But your face? Your voice? It'll be out there." I glanced at the clock on the dash. 2:47. Maybe someone would come by. A ranger. Another trucker. But traffic on this stretch at this hour was almost non-existent. I was alone. "Say it," he said quietly. "Name. Company. Then whatever else you want." I picked up the mic. My hand trembled. "My name is Thomas Merrick. I'm a fuel transport operator for Redwood Pacific Logistics, contracted to supply fuel for the South Line expansion project." I stopped. My throat felt dry. He nodded. "Keep going." I didn't know what to say. I wasn't going to pretend to be a whistleblower. I didn't know enough to fake it. But I also didn't want to die. "They didn't tell us what they were doing," I said. "They said it was legal, that it wouldn't impact protected land. But if you're seeing this, I guess that's not true." I glanced at him. He didn't react. "I drive the fuel. That's it. I didn't know." I let the mic drop into my lap. He reached over, took the phone, and nodded. Then he spoke softly into a walkie clipped to his shoulder. "Copy," came a static-filled voice. Outside, the others moved. One climbed into the shadows of a waiting SUV parked near the edge of the turnout. The other jogged past my door and disconnected the hoses. The clamps came off. The drone controller was packed away. "We're not monsters," he said. "You get to go home." He stepped out and closed the door behind him. The SUV's taillights glowed in the mist, then vanished into the fog. It was over in under 20 minutes. I sat in the cab, shaking. My phone powered on suddenly, full battery. I checked the camera. No new files, no uploads. I looked through the truck. No trackers, no bugs. I drove straight to the station in Eureka, reported everything, gave my statement, filed a police report. They took me seriously at first, then less so. There were no tire tracks, no flare gun, no evidence of siphoning, no video uploaded anywhere. Not that day, not that week. Just fog, and the whisper of the ocean. But I know what I saw, and I know what I said. Somewhere, that footage is sitting on a hard drive, waiting. I still drive nights, still haul fuel, but every time I pull onto a dark turnout along the coast, I roll past without stopping, some stages you never want to stand on again. I haul pharmaceuticals from a warehouse in Edison, New Jersey to distribution centers in the Midwest. Insulin, antipsychotics, blood thinners, stuff people need to stay alive. That week in October, I was on the Jersey to Cleveland run. 500 miles of mostly nothing, and I liked it that way. I'd been driving this route nearly 6 years. No major incidents. Just me, the road, and a rig full of boxes worth more than a house. It's not just pills. We carry controlled substances too, high-value targets, fentanyl patches, ADHD meds. That's why we get escorts. Black sedans with off-duty contractors, ex-cops mostly. They keep to protocol. Pre-trip meetup in the lot. Brief handshake, license plate check, verification call to dispatch. Then they shadow me for the entire trip, never more than a car length behind or ahead. That morning, my escort was a black Taurus with New York plates. 403 Lima Hotel X-ray. I remember it because I always write it down on the trip log. The driver was a white guy in his 50s. Shaved head, gray goatee, cop eyes. Didn't talk much, just nodded when I gave him the route sheet. We left the lot at 4:30. I watched him in the mirror most of the way through Jersey. He stayed tight, maybe 20 feet back, steady as a shadow. We hit Pennsylvania before 7, just past Easton. Fog rolled in over the hills, trees stripped to skeletons on either side of the highway. That stretch of I-80 is nothing but long, winding silences, and the occasional trucker with his lights off. I tuned into some AM talk show out of Scranton and let the rig settle into its rhythm. It was around Stroudsburg, maybe 70 miles in, when I noticed something off. There was a black Taurus behind me, same make and model, but something about it was cleaner, like it hadn't been driving behind me in highway grime for the last hour. The headlights looked brighter. I squinted into the mirror and caught the license plate. 403 Lima Hotel Victor, not X-ray. Victor. I slowed to 60 and watched the car behind me adjust without hesitation. No signal, no passing, just glued to my back bumper. I toggled the CB radio. Escort, this is Freightliner 72, confirm tail status. Nothing. Escort, do you copy? Still nothing. I pulled into a truck turnout just outside Tannersville. The Taurus followed, stopped about 30 yards back. Too far to talk, but not far enough to ignore. I stepped out and walked toward them, keeping my hands visible. The driver window rolled down halfway. The man inside was not my escort. Different build, thicker neck, black ball cap pulled low. I couldn't see his eyes. Everything all right, driver? He asked, voice calm, almost bored. You switched plates, I said. Don't know what you're talking about. You were 403 LHX back in Edison. No idea what that is. He gave me a thin smile and rolled up the window. I backed away and returned to my cab, heart thudding. I checked the dash cam, still rolling. I saved the footage and pinged dispatch on the emergency line. No answer. Not a good sign. They always pick up. Always. I tried the escort's listed contact. It rang once and cut off. I sat there, engine idling, trying to figure out how long I'd been tailed by the wrong car. 10 miles? 50? Another car pulled into the turnout. A silver Altima. Windows tinted darker than legal. It parked behind the Taurus, nose angled out toward the road like it was blocking an exit lane. My gut went cold. They weren't watching me. They were waiting for something. I pulled out of the turnout fast, wheels kicking gravel. The Taurus followed, as did the Altima. We merged back onto I-80 westbound. Traffic was thin, mostly long hauls and the occasional SUV. I hit 70, then 75. They kept pace. I called State Patrol on the emergency line, reported a suspected vehicle impersonating private security. They logged it, said they'd dispatch a unit to intercept near Bloomsburg, still 2 hours out. I wouldn't make it that long. I needed to buy time. About 10 miles down, I saw a sign for a rest area, 2 miles. I made a snap decision and took the off-ramp at the last second. The Taurus overshot it. They must have been too close. The Altima stayed with me. I pulled into the rest area and parked by the far exit, engine running. The Altima parked 2 rows back, driver's door cracked. I could see movement, someone stepping out. I grabbed my mag light from the glove box and slid down behind the dashboard. It was my only weapon. No guns allowed in the cab. Company policy. The man from the Altima walked toward me, casual. Mid-30s, black windbreaker, jeans, carrying what looked like a folded clipboard. Could have passed for a DOT inspector. He tapped on the passenger window. I didn't move. He tapped again. Then I heard him, through the thin insulation of the cab, talking to someone on a radio. He stopped, waiting. Doesn't look like he's gonna leave the cab. Pause. No signs of distress. We'll stage the breakdown at the turnpike merge. My stomach flipped. They weren't following me to intimidate. They were setting something up. A fake breakdown, maybe even a crash. Somewhere rural, somewhere quiet. I hit the air horn, long, loud, 2 blasts. A signal to any nearby drivers. A family with kids in an SUV turned their heads. The man outside stiffened, then turned and walked briskly back to the Altima. I waited 10 minutes. Neither car moved. I left the rest area and got back on the highway. They followed. I started driving like I had a load of glass. No sudden moves, no panic. I watched every mirror like it was a live feed of my funeral. An hour later, just before Bloomsburg, I saw it. The State Patrol Charger sitting in the median, tucked behind brush. I laid on the horn and flashed my lights. The cruiser pulled out, slow at first, then fast. The Taurus vanished into the right lane, then off an exit ramp. The Altima swerved and tried to follow, but the patrol car was already behind me, lights on. I pulled onto the shoulder. The trooper approached, asked for my papers. I gave him everything: license, trip manifest, logbook. I also handed over the dash cam footage and explained what had happened. He watched some of it on his laptop, face stone cold. He didn't say much, just called it in. Within 20 minutes, more units arrived. They got descriptions. One of the cars, the Taurus, was found abandoned 5 miles down a service road, plates stripped, VIN filed off. The Altima never turned up. I spent that night at a motel in Danville under police watch. My load was picked up the next morning by a new driver. They never caught the imposters. I still run freight, but I check the plate 3 times now. I memorize the face. I call dispatch every hour on the hour. Sometimes when I'm parked at a rest stop, I see a car in the distance with the same model and color as one I remember, and I feel that tight little pinch in my ribs. I know it's not them, but I never, ever let my guard down. Because if they were bold enough to stage a breakdown on a public highway once, they'll try again. And next time, they'll make sure no one gets away. I was hauling frozen chicken out of Fort Collins, aiming to hit Salt Lake by dawn. Late February, just after Valentine's, and the sky over Laramie had already gone from flat gray to a boiling bruise. You could smell snow coming, that metallic edge in the air like cold pennies in your mouth. I was running empty on sleep but full on caffeine, a 10-hour push behind me and a good 12 to go, assuming Wyoming didn't decide to eat me alive. Interstate 80 through southern Wyoming is a bastard in winter. Straight shot, windswept, no mercy. I'd run it 50 times, maybe more, but that didn't make it easier. This was the kind of highway that took your measure every time you dared to cross it. And that night, it was measuring hard. I stopped for fuel at Little America, topped off the Peterbilt, checked my straps, and walked into the diner for a piss and some black coffee. The waitress looked up as I came in, nodded like she'd seen 1,000 of me before. I slid into a booth next to an old hand in a Carhartt coat who smelled like diesel and menthols. He was mumbling into his CB mic with the squint of someone trying to read bad news far away. The waitress poured my coffee. "You headed west?" "Yeah," I said, "trying to beat the weather." She just nodded, lips pressed thin. That was Wyoming speak for "you're screwed" and I'm not gonna say it. I drained the mug, tipped $5, and got back on the road. Snow was already dancing across the asphalt, little silver blades catching the headlights. The wind came in hard gusts, slapping the rig sideways like a bully testing boundaries. I tuned into Channel 19, the trucker's lifeline, and kept my ears open. That's when the chatter started. "This is Hammerjack. Anyone westbound past Elk Mountain, you copy?" I grabbed the mic. "This is Blue Pete. Go ahead, Hammerjack. Got word of a snowplow leading trucks up the pass. Don't follow it. Repeat, don't follow it." "Why not?" "It ain't Y dot. Doesn't have state tags, no beacon, no escort. We got one rig stripped and ditched outside of Rollins. Driver's in the ER." "Jesus," I muttered. "Spread the word," Hammerjack said. "They're flagging trucks into the old rest access, past the fence line. Looks legit in the whiteout. They've got cones, high-vis vests, all of it. But they ain't plowing. They're jacking freight." That was new. Bandits in high-vis, working the storm. I didn't ask if he was sure. You can hear the truth in a man's voice, and Hammerjack was shaking when he keyed up again. "They took everything but the cab. Driver said they had guns. No plates, no names. Just moved fast, like they'd done it before." I clicked the mic once in acknowledgement and stared at the white crawling toward my windshield. The snow thickened by the minute, visibility tanking. My wipers couldn't keep up. I eased off the pedal, bringing the rig down to 40, then 35. Any slower and I risked losing traction on the inclines. Any faster and I wouldn't see the ditch until I was in it. Then I saw them, flashing amber lights through the flurry. A plow truck, just ahead, slowing and swinging wide like it was preparing to lead a convoy. It had a "Follow Me" sign rigged to the back gate, and behind it, I could barely make out a few other rigs lining up. I grabbed the mic again. "Plow sighted westbound, just past mile marker 243. Anybody got eyes on it?" Static. Then a voice I didn't recognize. "Roger that. I'm second in line. Looks good to me." Another. "Following the lights. Better than driving blind." But Hammerjack came back on. Urgent. "Blue Pete. That's them. Get off that trail. I just passed 243 10 minutes ago. There's no state plow on that stretch. You hear me? That's them." I felt my knuckles go white around the wheel. The plow ahead began slowing, angling off toward an unmarked access road half hidden by drifts. It looked plowed, yeah, but something was off. No signage, no escort vehicle, just cones in the snow and a guy in a bright vest waving a flashlight, motioning me to follow. I couldn't see the other trucks anymore, just taillights winking through the storm, turning off the highway one by one. I kept rolling, slower now, trying to make a choice. Trust the CB, or trust my own eyes. Then I caught a detail that sealed it. The guy flagging trucks wore a reflective vest, but no hard hat, no radio, and he didn't have the sluggish, overcautious body language of WI. Guys in a storm. He was brisk, confident, too confident. I stayed on the main road. The plow in front paused, like it was waiting for me to turn. When I didn't, it idled a few seconds, then turned off anyway, leading the other rigs down the access. I radioed back. "They turned west, off 243. Hammerjack's voice came low. "You did the right thing." I wish that was the end of it. But 20 miles on, past Arlington, the real trouble started. The whiteout hit like a wall. I couldn't see more than 20 feet ahead. The wind turned vicious, coming in crosswise, rocking the trailer like a toy. Ice built on the side mirrors, then the wipers froze. I was blind. I crept forward, following the shallow divots left by tires ahead of me, praying they belonged to someone who knew what they were doing. My eyes burned from staring into the lightless void. Then the tire tracks vanished. I realized I was alone. My CB crackled again. "Blue Pete, you still upright?" "Barely." "Exit ahead at Foot Ranch is buried. Don't try for it. Just keep straight and slow." Another mile, maybe two, passed in silence, the world outside reduced to an endless white scream. Then a shape emerged in the road. Not a plow, a truck. Jackknifed across both lanes, flashers blinking weakly. Its cab door hung open, and the trailer's rear doors were gone, torn clean off. Snow blew in and out of the empty box. No one in the driver's seat. I stopped, threw on the brakes, heart thundering. I couldn't go around. The ditch on either side was too deep. I sat there, engine idling, trying to figure my next move. That's when I saw the boot prints, half filled with snow, but still fresh, leading away from the cab, toward the ditch, then looping back. I killed the headlights. Something was wrong. It was too quiet. And then, a knock. Driver's side door. Just one knock. Low. Firm. I didn't move. My hand hovered near the CB. Another knock. Slower this time. Then silence. I reached for the Glock I kept in the side compartment. I hadn't touched it in 6 years. A voice spoke, muffled. "You okay in there, driver?" Not a question. A probe. I didn't answer. Then I heard footsteps crunching through snow, moving along the length of the cab. One set, then two more. They were surrounding me. Another voice. Younger, cocky. "Come on now, just a quick look. Make sure you're all good." That's when I realized they weren't trying to rob the rig. Not yet. They were trying to see if I'd come out on my own. I slipped into the sleeper, stayed low, and killed every light. No idle, no beacon. Total blackout. The footsteps paused. Then came the sound of a crowbar wedging under my passenger door handle. I had about 3 seconds to decide. I popped the driver's side, threw my parka over the seat, and slipped out into the wind. I landed hard in a snowbank, rolled, and belly crawled under the trailer. Their focus was still on the cab. I made it out the far side, boots soaked, fingers going numb. Visibility was garbage, but I knew if I stayed low and quiet, I could loop around. I circled behind them, watching as 2 figures pried open my passenger door and one climbed halfway in. I raised the Glock, but didn't shoot. Not yet. Instead, I keyed the remote starter. The engine roared back to life. Headlights flared. The guy in the cab screamed. I fired once into the air. They scattered. The one in the cab jumped out, landing hard. I could hear them cursing, slipping, scrambling toward the ditch. I didn't chase. I climbed back in, threw it in gear, and rolled over the snowbank edging the shoulder, bumping hard back onto the road. Didn't stop until Rock Springs. I parked under the gas station floodlights, stepped out, and threw up in the snow. State troopers took my statement 3 hours later. I gave them all I had: descriptions, timing, location. They said they'd had a few similar reports, but no solid leads. No arrests. Hammerjack called me that night. Said 4 trucks never showed up. Vanished off the grid. "You did the smart thing," he told me. I didn't feel smart. I felt lucky and cold, and I haven't taken the 80 in winter since. I was about 30 miles outside Grand Island, Nebraska, when my trailer groaned and spat out another noise I'd been pretending not to hear since Wyoming. One of those slow, metallic complaints that sound like a threat. I'd been on the road for 16 hours, no shower, no sleep, surviving on gas station coffee and whatever stale burrito I could stomach. It was early June, the humidity already thick and sour by 10 in the morning, and the way station off US Route 34 had its digital sign lit up bright red. All trucks must stop. I almost kept going. Almost. But the way they've got it set up in Nebraska, you do that, and it pings your DOT record before you even blink. Too many pings, and they start pulling your license for reviews, random stops, audits. You either play the game or they sideline you. And I couldn't afford that. Not with my truck still owing money, and a daughter about to turn 16 back home in Missouri who thought I was some kind of goddamn superhero. The way station sat like a lonely box on a cracked lot surrounded by yellow grass and a rusted cyclone fence. No other rigs in line. Just me. I rolled over the scales, slow, steady, holding my breath like always. The red light blinked. Then a voice crackled from the overhead speaker. "Driver of Unit 437, pull around back. Bring your papers inside." I swore under my breath, parked in the side lot, and grabbed my binder. Inside smelled like old coffee and printer ink. The fluorescent lights buzzed. There were two guys behind the counter, both in uniform. One was thin, with bad skin and mirrored sunglasses, even though we were indoors. The other was thick around the middle, with a face like wet clay. He was the one who waved me over. "You drive for yourself?" he asked without looking up. "Yeah," I said. "Owner-op out of Columbia, Missouri." He typed something, squinted at his screen. "You hauling a load of power tools?" "Yep. Contract out of Boise. Scheduled delivery in Kansas City by tomorrow morning." He nodded, then turned the screen so I could see. According to their scale, I was over the legal axle limit by nearly 2,000 pounds. "That's not possible," I said. "I was underweight back in Cheyenne. I've been checking this load the whole way." Clayface shrugged. "Well, this is what we're reading. Got a problem with the calibration, maybe, but it's still official, and you're not legal." I felt my stomach drop. 2,000 pounds over could mean a Class 2 citation. That's steep. Could lose my CDL for a few months. Get tagged in the FMCSA database. Shippers start ghosting you. "There's got to be a mistake," I said. "Let me roll over again." "Already did. Same reading." The thin one finally spoke, his tone too casual. "What'd you say you're delivering?" "DeWalt cordless kits, mostly." He smiled. "That's funny. We get a lot of those coming through. You know what's funny about those kits?" I didn't answer. "They're real easy to swap out." The fat one pushed a manila folder across the counter. Inside was a printed invoice, not mine. Different serials, same product, and the weight matched their reading. "You see, we got a local situation," he said. "Some inventory gets rerouted, falls off the official books, ends up somewhere else. But that throws the weight off, you understand?" I stared at the invoice. My throat had gone dry. "I didn't agree to this," I said. The thin one leaned in. "Doesn't matter. It's in your trailer now. You move it or you don't move at all. We let dispatch know you're tagged. Your next weigh-in gets flagged too. You'll be lucky to drive again this year." "What happens when I deliver and the inventory doesn't match?" "You're not delivering it to the depot," he said. "You're making a little stop first. That'll be in the instructions." Clayface tapped the counter. "We'll clean your report. Just this once. Be a team player." I should have walked, reported it, called a lawyer. But that was logic and this was survival. One stop, one drop, and I get my slate clean. That's what I told myself. They handed me a new set of route notes, hand-scribbled. Off the main road, south of Hastings. A warehouse address I didn't recognize. No business name. I pulled out and drove in silence for nearly an hour. No music, no CB. Just the rattle of the road and the weight of my mistake. The warehouse was a squat cinder block structure behind a field of broken corn stalks. 2 trucks already there, engines idling. No signs, no cameras, just a roll-up door and a guy in jeans and a windbreaker waving me down. I backed up to the bay. He didn't ask for paperwork. Just opened the seal, peeked inside, nodded. Then he gave me an envelope and told me to leave. I didn't open it until I was halfway to the nearest Love's. Inside was a stack of 20s, maybe $2,000, and a burner phone. It rang the next morning. "You did good," the voice said. Male, Midwest drawl. "Got another run in 3 weeks, eastbound this time." I threw the phone out the window. But the next time I hit that way station, they flagged me again. Same 2 guys, same line. "You're heavy again," the thin one said, smiling. This went on for 3 months. Each run, more pressure, different loads. Always electronics, TVs, tablets, laptops. Stuff you could move fast on the street. Always a fake invoice. Always just enough cash to shut me up. And I kept doing it. Because it was either that or lose everything. The mortgage, the truck, my daughter's tuition. They knew I wouldn't risk it. Then came the Kansas job. Pickup was in Lincoln. Drop off outside Tulsa. Everything looked the same. Normal manifest, standard load. But something was off the second I pulled away. There were no cereals this time. The boxes were sealed, yeah, but the labels were all wrong. Generic. No logos. And the guy at the drop point, he looked scared. He came out to the bay and just stared at the trailer for a long time. Then he muttered, "Wrong shipment," and walked off. 15 minutes later, 2 black SUVs pulled up. No plates. They didn't unload the freight. They took the whole trailer, hitched it to their own rig, and told me to disappear. I drove straight to a hotel outside Oklahoma City and didn't leave the room for a full day. Just sat there, staring at my hands, thinking about what the hell I was involved in. Next morning, another burner phone, taped under my windshield wiper. "You keep quiet," the message said, "and we clean your record." I didn't reply, but that was the final straw. I started collecting every fake invoice, every GPS record, took pictures of every load I could. I didn't know who to trust. Local cops were probably paid off, and DOT wasn't going to believe a guy already flagged for weight fraud. So I drove to the FBI office in Omaha. I thought maybe they'd laugh, or charge me. But when I showed them what I had, they brought me inside and closed the blinds. No cuffs, no threats, just a quiet man in a gray suit who asked me to tell the story from the beginning. Turned out they'd been chasing a smuggling ring through way stations in Nebraska, Missouri, and Kansas for over a year. All under-the-table work, corrupt inspectors rerouting stolen tech to dealers across the Midwest. They needed someone inside, someone who knew the routes. I gave them everything, every drop point, every name, every route number. In exchange, they cut me a deal. No charges, new identity, new DOT number, clean slate. That was 6 months ago. Now I'm running reefer loads out of New Mexico. Long hauls, low risk, no sketchy drop points, no back-channel way stations. But every time I roll past one of those signs, all trucks must stop. I still grip the wheel a little tighter, because I know how easy it is to fall in, and how damn hard it is to climb back out.